Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Claudia Simmons, your worship associate. This morning, delighted to be working with the wonderful Reverend Ian. Before we begin, would you take a moment and please silence your cell phones? Here, as we do every week, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded lands of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla people, and we commit to grow in our understanding and relationship with this land and with the people who inhabited it and nurtured it before our arrival. In this congregation, where we strive to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person, you are welcome no matter your sexual orientation or gender identity, your age or your size, whether you're rich or whether you're poor. We welcome people of all races, religions, and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from and whoever you love. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world. Our goal here is to build a community centered in justice, in compassion, and in love. We're glad you are with us this morning, whether you are here in the sanctuary or at home. We're very grateful. Wow, well, thank you for joining us today. It's really exciting at this time of the year to see some newcomers come by and say hi. If you'd like to learn more about us or our programming, please contact the office at admin@uucod.org or visit our website at uuc.org. And now, please join me as Reverend Ian rings the Tibetan bowl and we listen to the wonderful Chip Prince play our music for centering to start our service.
Good morning. Thank you. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor and privilege and joy of serving this. Okay. My new identity as of this morning. Why are they laughing? Okay. Shall we try that again? See if it gets it right this time. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor of serving this conference. Okay, we'll move on now. So much for seriousness and pomp, but I have the joy of serving this congregation as your minister. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome, whatever your name is and whatever the teleprompter tells you. We are a congregation and a tradition that celebrates. Are we going to get going here? Okay. We are a congregation and a tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving future for all of life. We strive together to build the beloved community of resilience, hope, and love in the face of fear and apathy. We practice the opening of hearts, the working of hands, and the lifting of spirits in the service of love. We share the sacred breath. We gather together to build the beloved community, breath by breath, word by word, note by note, step by step. We gather together today to sing and speak and breathe and dance the beloved community into being. This is our work. This is our calling. This is our joy. Will you join me as we begin our service together and sing our opening hymn, We Here We Have Gathered. Please rise in body or in spirit. Here we have gathered
And now Reverend Ian will light the chalice as we recite the unison aspiration. The words are on the screen if you'll join. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And if Frank Riella will come and light the Biopoc candle, and we will recite. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together toward spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. You know, Reverend Ian recommended this reading this morning, and it's, I think, really profound. It's absolutely directed towards all of us. It's called The Answer is Love, and it's from Love at the Center, Unitarian Universalist Theologies, and it's by Reverend Sophia Benacor, UUA President. A common question that UUs often face is how we can be a religion if we do not lay claim to one clearly delineated theological truth. The answer is love. Our inherited theological tradition places its faith in love. Given everything our world faces today, having faith in love is no small thing. The love that lives in the center of faith is very simply love that abides. It is a love that expects nothing less of us than the rebuilding of this struggling world. Sometimes we know of love and justice pushes us in ways we never expected, and sometimes the need to bear such love into the world is heartbreakingly large. It is in those moments that we most need one another. We most need beloved community. We need reminding, solidarity, connection, and care. Our freely made choice to participate in that greater community can slowly renew us and even repair the kinds of grief that have been building for many years, to restore what we long to hold at our own centers and to heal that which keeps us from being more loving. We hold a love greater than we know between and among us, born from all that we hold holy. It takes many of us in community to insist that a better future is possible, to keep us faithful to our commitments when we err or falter, and to remind us that we are constantly connected to a hope-filled belief in human goodness and in capacity for love, even when we feel furthest from that which is larger than our own knowing. I thought that was pretty profound. Today's Share the Plate. Today's Share the Plate has a special story behind it, and before she passed away, our beloved Gloria Kapp nominated Martha's Village and Kitchen last March with the expectation that your generous donations would be earmarked for the Palm Springs Homeless Navigation Center, which is operated by Martha's Village. You agreed and voted for it to be one of the Share the Plates recipient this year. While not all parts of the Palm Springs Navigation Center are operational yet, since March it has been offering overnight housing for up to 55 individuals with day services at its cooling center on El Cielo Road. The program offers a low-barrier shelter that is focused on moving people into permanent housing through a combination of wraparound services in a supportive and safe environment. When the campus is fully completed in August, the Navigation Center will provide an additional 80 units of transitional housing in North Palm Springs. Here to tell us more about her work at the center is Ann Eyring, Senior Manager of Programs at Martha's Village and Kitchen. Please welcome Ann.
My name is Ann again. I work at Martha's Village and Kitchen. I'm the senior manager of programs there. And I'm really excited to be here. So thankful for Gloria. You having trouble hearing me? Okay. Can you hear me better now? Let's put this up towards my mouth. I'm not. Wonderful. Is that better? Okay, I apologize. So I'm the senior manager of programs at Martha's Village and Kitchen. A big part of what I do is help oversee the Navigation Center, which we opened on March 4th for our overnight shelter, which we refer to as our early entry shelter. Like they said, when they were introducing me, we have 50 beds available on a nightly basis for our community members who are struggling and currently unhoused. Part of what we're doing there is a low barrier shelter, which means we know that there's things that have happened in these individuals' lives that have gotten them to our doorstep and needing help. We aren't here to judge them. We're here to help them and help connect them to services to make their lives better. We do follow a housing first model, which in a nutshell, basically it's a belief system that we want to work as quickly as possible to get these individuals housed so that then they can continue to do the work on themselves in their life and what got them there in the first place, whatever that may be. We do currently, so we run an overnight shelter. Part of what we do there is connect them to wraparound services, which involves case management. So some of the things that we help them with are getting ID vouchers if they don't have an identification, getting a copy of their birth certificate, getting their social security card. We do clothing vouchers. We have a partnership with Revivals so that if someone's in need of clothing, we can get them there. We do transport them there to get those clothing from Revivals. We do provide meal services. So every day, during the day, if they come to the Access Center at 225 El Cielo Road, which is right across from the airport, we do take them via van to local churches to have lunch. So there's several local churches that we partner with. So every day of the week they can have a lunch. We will take them there and pick them up so that we're trying to lower the barriers to them to reaching the services that they need. And a big thing that they need is to be fed. In our overnight shelter, once we get them to the shelter, which we transport them ourselves, we do have an agreement with the city, the neighbors, and all the businesses that are nearby that we won't have people coming in and out. We won't have people outside causing any issues with neighbors. So we do transport them ourselves every single day in the evening, and we bring them back in the morning. When they're there, they will get a meal, which we are currently utilizing local restaurants for that. When we fully open in August, there's going to be a full kitchen where our clients can have a full meal every single evening and every morning. We do have a partnership with the Palm Springs Police Department. It's been a big part of what we do. We have 5 beds reserved for the police department. So in the event that they come across someone in their patrols in the evening or overnight that is clearly unhoused and needs some help, we hold 5 beds. They give us a call. They say, we found someone outside. We'd like to bring them in. And we allow them to do that. We don't ask a lot of questions. We just want to get people connected to services. A lot of what we do at Martha's Village and Kitchen and in this, sorry, just make sure I'm not going to go over the time allotted. But a lot of what we do is developing relationships. A lot of the people that we serve come with mental illness, substance use, but mostly they've been treated kind of poorly out there in the world. And so it takes a lot of connection with them, a lot of repeated connection with them to get them to trust us, to have them come and utilize our services. And that's what we do at the Access Center especially. We get them in to see a case manager. What can we start at now? We kind of develop goals. What are the first things you need? You need identification, you need a birth certificate, and then we go from there. We get them in the shelter so that they have somewhere safe and stable to stay every night, and then we work towards getting them a job. We have employment specialists who help with that. Again, we do clothing vouchers to get them clothing if they need that, and we go from there. There is going to be 80 modular units, which there's both mostly single units. There are some family units, and there's also some units that are put aside for transition age youth, which is anyone from 18 to 24 who's currently unhoused without the rest of their family. there's some units for them. And the transitional nature, they're going to stay there while our staff members diligently work to get them connected to permanent housing. So we do a housing assessment when they come in to get them on what is called a coordinated entry system, which is a system that the county uses to choose people for their housing programs, which would pay for their rent, help them with security deposits and things like that. And it all has ongoing wraparound services to make sure that the person is supported in all of their needs. Wait 1 second here. Okay. I'm almost out of my allotted time, but I will be here afterwards for the coffee to answer any additional questions that you all may have, but I can tell you that we have had some moderate success. We have been only open since March 4th in our new location, which is in the north side of Palm Springs, and we've currently successfully housed 2 people already, and that's the only part that's, yes, we've gotten people off the street and successfully housed, and I anticipate that number will go up quite a bit once the full campus opens in August. I'm very excited to be part of this. And we're so grateful to have all of you here to listen to what we're doing and to share the plate with us. I'm grateful for Gloria for pushing for this to happen. I wish she was here to see it, but I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Anne. As you heard, Anne will be staying afterwards to help answer any questions that you might have. But until then, please give as generously as you are able here in the sanctuary. And if you are watching from home, from the link that was emailed to you earlier today, let's try to fulfill Gloria Cap's vision.
I have a joy from our whole community. This past week, I think it was on Wednesday evening. On Wednesday evening, Joni Paddock and Carol McDaniel went to a gathering that was a celebration, and our congregation was honored with this plaque, this certificate of appreciation. This acknowledges that the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert has been recognized for their generous contribution to CVUSD migrant students. So we support this organization and its work for students throughout the year, and we have been honored and said thank you to for the work that we do. Thank you, Joni and Carol, for being there to represent us and to say, and thank you to all of you for the work you do to make this happen. Our work in the community is noticed. These are the joys and sorrows that have been shared with us this morning, but I know that there are those that live in our hearts, in our minds, in our spirits, and so we pause now in quiet reflection to remind ourselves by the sound of the breathing around us, the touch of those around us, remind ourselves that we are not alone. In our joy or in our pain, we are not alone. When we struggle, when we triumph, we are not alone. And so we pause now for a moment. Breathe deeply in whatever way you find calming and connecting. We breathe deeply into this space. This place which is holy and made even more so by our presence and our gathering. This place that is full of our hearts and our bodies, our spirits and our minds, and the love that we carry together. The love we have for ourselves, for each other. The love we carry tenderly for the world around. The love we carry fiercely for those in pain or suffering. This love sustains us, offers us hope and possibility. And so we pause in grateful presence for this love. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Friends, will you join your voices together as we sing our hymns of meditation, Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor. About the AARP magazine. You may not have seen it yet. There are some folks in the room who aren't members of the AARP, I would imagine. I'm a member of the AARP. I was like, I got a nice tote bag. But there was an article or something somewhere where someone was reflecting on their life, and they shared that they had met their spouse at the Unitarian Universalist Church in their town. And so, welcome, I'm glad. But we were in the AARP magazine without planning to be. So we get newcomers and visitors from all over the place. And one thing that happens here in this congregation twice a year is that we do newcomer orientation sessions, which we hope leads to people becoming members of our congregation, but really also just helps people get to know who we are. And it's one of the joys of ministry to participate in these. And at our newcomer orientation classes, my role is usually to tell participants about the history of our movement and about how we have come to govern ourselves. We operate as a denomination through what we call congregational polity. This means that each congregation is responsible for governing itself, choosing its own ministers, setting its own budget, and we are not governed by national or regional councils like the Presbyterians or the Methodists, or by bishops like the Episcopalians or the Catholics or the Lutherans. My words today are a little bit about that. I also talk with newcomers about our commitment to freedom of conscience and of belief. We are not held to a creedal standard of beliefs, but are given the right and the responsibility to figure out our own understanding of things and to figure out how we will live those out in the world and in community. We gather to nurture and challenge and inspire each other on our individual and collective journeys. My words are a little bit about that today as well. Now, I want to say to newcomers or folks who haven't been here a lot, today's sermon is a little bit of insider baseball. I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff that is going on at our denominational level that we are involved in, and I hope that it will help you at least get a sense of who we are as a religious movement, what is important to us. I hope that it can be that for you. So in just over a month, Unitarian Universalists from around the continent will be gathered in an annual conference that we call General Assembly. It is at General Assembly where Unitarian Universalists come together to get to know each other, to learn together, to share in the joys and challenges of our faith tradition and in our work in the world. We worship together in large numbers. It's a mighty thing to be in a room with more than 1,000 other Unitarian Universalists and sing Blue Boat Home or Spirit of Life or Fire of Commitment. When we sing it later in the service, Fire of Commitment, I want you to imagine being in a room with thousands of people singing. General Assembly is also the place and the time that we grapple with the issues of the day, exploring the ways that we as religious folks will strive to live into justice, inclusion, and love as a denomination and in our congregations. And it's also where we do a lot of the business of the association, electing members to our Unitarian Universalist Association board and committees, directing that board and those committees about the ways we want them to use the resources of our denomination, and making decisions about the bylaws that govern the Unitarian Universalist Association. Delegates from congregations work together to make these decisions, representing our communities all over the country. It's important work. And one of the challenges of General Assembly is that it can be really expensive to participate in. Registration, airfare, hotel costs, food, it can add up to well over $2,000 for a person. And so it hasn't always been the most accessible to a wide range of Unitarian Universalists. Over the past years, especially through the pandemic, we have explored new and better ways to gather that have made General Assembly much easier and more affordable to participate in. Going completely online in the heart of the pandemic and hybrid in-person online since then has made General Assembly and the business of the association much more accessible to a wider range of Unitarian Universalists. This year's General Assembly will be entirely online. All participants and delegates will take part in worship, workshops, focus groups, and the general business sessions from afar through their computers and tablets and cell phones. And this year, I think it's really important that General Assembly be accessible. We're making some big decisions about our religious movement and how we are choosing to talk about ourselves, how we describe who we are religiously. For more than a year now, I have been talking to you from this pulpit about the proposed changes to Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws, not this congregation's bylaws, the association's bylaws. While those bylaws do contain process and procedure and policy for running the business of the association, they also, interestingly, contain statements about who we are religiously, what our commitments to each other and the wider world are, our principles, the sources we call on to build our spiritual lives and communities, our commitments to individual religious freedom and to inclusion. All of these are outlawed in the bylaws of our association in Article 2. I've heard jokes from folks that only Unitarian Universalists would put religious statements in the bylaws, but there we are. Because of the deep importance of these texts and these commitments, it is difficult to amend or change Article 2. Changes require much more intentional study and collaboration and 2 separate votes at 2 successive General Assemblies. Last year, after a couple of years of study and consultation and crafting, the General Assembly voted for the first time to approve changes to our bylaws that I've been talking about from this pulpit for more than a year. In a few weeks, the General Assembly will vote once again and either approve or reject these changes. The first vote required a simple majority to pass. This year's vote requires a 2/3 majority. The new language reworks and changes the entirety of Article 2, which contains more than just the sources and principles. And as a reminder to all of you, on the back of the order of service, you'll find our principles and our religious sources there. Those are part of the article that is up for change. So the new language reworks the whole thing. And I'm going to go back to the principles and the sources in a little bit. But I first want to look a little at the other parts of this article because they lay out things that are important to who and why we gather. And as I do this, I want to remind you that after the service today at 11:30, Jane Zahn and I will host a gathering where we can talk together and in small groups about some of these proposed changes and get a sense of how we're feeling about them. And if you can't be here at 11:30, we will be doing that again at 6 o'clock, I believe, on Thursday evening on Zoom. So pay attention. There'll be an email going out this week to let you know about the link for that. But a couple of opportunities to talk together about this. And before we do, I want to remind you that we're talking about changes to the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association, not the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. Changing those would be our work alone and would reflect the specificness that is here gathered in Rancho Mirage and around us. The bylaws we're talking about today are our wider association. And I also want to acknowledge that it would be hard for me to talk about these changes without you figuring out how I feel about them. I do like them quite a bit. I find them inspiring and generative of possibility, and there are definitely people in our movement who do not feel that way. There may be people here in this room who do not feel the way I do. That is absolutely okay. We don't have to agree in order to live into our shared ministry or be in relation as we do the work of this congregation. I'm your minister whether we agree about this or not, whether these changes pass at General Assembly or not. And our conversation about our values and principles and commitments are going to continue always, regardless of what happens at General Assembly. One of the reasons that we're gathering today after service and on Zoom later in the week is so you can talk about these changes and your views of them, your hopes, your concerns, together with each other, and so that we can all get a sense of how the congregation is feeling. I do hope you'll join us. So I want to take a little time to talk about some of the changes outside of the statement of values and covenant. And this is not a very sermon-y sermon at this point, but it's important for us to grapple with these things. The Article 2 of the UUA bylaws begins with this statement of the purposes of the Unitarian Universalist Association. It says, the Unitarian Universalist Association will devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. Its primary purposes are to assist congregations in their vital ministries, to support and train leaders, both lay and professional, to foster lifelong faith formation and spiritual development, to heal historic injustices, to support and encourage the creation of new Unitarian Universalist communities, and to advance our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. The Unitarian Universalist Association will actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. That's the statement of purpose for the Unitarian Universalist Association. So this is the role of our national body. This is the proposed language, to help congregations thrive in their ministries, to promote our values in the world, and to work with congregation and others to bring change toward justice in the world. These new words parallel fairly closely the current language, with the significant addition of the purpose of healing historic injustices. For me, that addition, that assertion, puts us in direct contrast with those around our country who are arguing that we ignore the past's influence on current reality, those who fear being made uncomfortable with the telling of true history. I think we are striving to be clear that while we may not have personally contributed to past harms, that we are responsible for crafting a way forward, a way of truth, healing, and reconciliation. I think that one of the important things to remember about the proposed changes is that the language of the Article 2 is in no way telling us as individuals what we have to believe in order to belong. There is no creedal test. There is no requirement that anybody sign off on a specific set of beliefs in order to be a Unitarian Universalist. In fact, both the current language and the proposed new language make this point. The new language includes a statement about freedom of belief, and it goes like this: congregational freedom and the individual's right of conscience are central to our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Congregations may establish statements of purpose, covenants, and bonds of union so long as they do not require that members adhere to a particular creed. So congregations are allowed to create the covenants they want, to establish their own purposes, but they cannot ask congregants to adhere to a particular creed. Now, some of the concern or resistance to the new language is that it will be replacing the 7 principles, or in our congregation's case, 8, because we, a little over a year ago, adapted the 8th principle. Those principles that we have centered for a long time now, since the late 1980s, in fact. And again, I want to say to you, this language is not intended to tell you as an individual what you must believe or the principles or values you must choose to build your life around. The principles can still be yours. These changes don't tell you that you must change your beliefs. They are a new way of looking at and sharing the things that unite us as a religious movement broadly. And I think one of the things that unites us broadly is a desire, a move towards inclusion and diversity. These have long been an important part of who we strive to be as a people of faith, people of covenant, of promise. We have long included a statement about inclusion and diversities in our association's central statements of who we are. The language that is being proposed is very close to the current language. So this is the language being proposed. It's not really much of a change. Systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities. So we commit to a broad and deep inclusion in our work as an association. Take a little breath for a moment. I've been throwing a lot of words at you. If you come to the work, to our conversation after the service today, we'll have printouts of some of these things. You can see them in your hands and compare them. Those are available online, and we'll let you know how to find those as well. So if you go back to that order of worship and you look on the back of the order of worship along with the 8 principles, you'll see a listing of the sources that our living tradition calls on as we figure things out, as we decide who to be in the world. Now, these two have changed since the beginning of the Unitarian Universalist Association in 1961. Reminder that our principles in 1961 are not the principles we have now. They do change over time, and we are tasked with paying attention to that. In fact, these sources were added to when the current set of principles that we use were first adopted in 1985. So the sources were added in 1985. The 6th source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, was added in 1995. Not till then. And another change was made in 2017. Previously, the 2nd source began words and deeds of prophetic women and men. In 2017, it was amended to read what you have in front of you, words and deeds of prophetic people, to be more inclusive of a broader range of people. This language is slated for change as well. It's slated to be retitled Inspirations, and what you see in front of you, the sources, is to be replaced by these words. And I'll read them to you twice. Direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of Unitarian Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which these sources were created and are currently practiced. Grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. I'm going to read it to you again. Direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of Unitarian Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which these sources were created and are currently practiced. Grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. So a list of specifics is gone, but an invitation to a broader and a deeper connection to the traditions that we bring with us from our own histories that we see in the world around us, and a request and admonition, a call to pay attention to the roots of those traditions for the people who carry them as we engage in them in the world. And so we have spent the year exploring the values that Article 2 states that we are called to live out through the spiritual discipline of love. These values that I've preached about, that all sorts of other things have happened around, are in no particular order: interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. These are the values that I have shared with you from the pulpit over the past month. These are the values that Bob, our congregation's president this year, has explored for us in his newsletter columns over the past year. These are the values that our chalice circles have discussed and pondered together as they met. These are the values that our denominational liaison, Jane Zahn, has promoted in her newsletter articles over the year. In the current language, before the principles, it says that we are called to affirm and promote those principles. In the new language, we are called to be accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. It feels more directive, more active. And there's something different about the way the language talks about those individual values. It's not just an expression of the values, not just a definition. For each value, there is a promise, a covenant, pointing us forward toward how we, as the kind of religiously liberal people we are, called by, how we will live into these values. Examples: one of them says, we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resources. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We are called to cogitate and to act, to learn and to act, to relate to each other in love and to act out of that relationship and that love. If you'll remember back to March when I preached to you about thought and action, I quoted Sufi philosopher Al-Ghazali, who said, knowledge without action is madness, and action without knowledge is void. And Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams, who wrote, all social action is therefore explicitly or implicitly grounded in a theology, and all theology, all thinking about the way things are, implies a fundamental conception of social action. We are a this world faith tradition. We don't concern ourselves with agreeing what will happen after we die. We worry about what is going on in this world, what our work to make this world a more thriving, more loving, more just place is all about. Friends, the world around us is changing faster and more extremely than many of us, most of us, would like, I think. Our technology, our politics, our social structures, our ways of understanding ourselves as human beings in relationship with each other seem to be in chaos and upheaval. One of the reasons we build communities like this one, communities of connection, of learning, of support, of inspiration, is to strengthen the bonds between us, to remind us that we are not alone, to create something solid we can rest in and on as we face the larger world. And here we are, it might seem, suggesting that we change something that has felt so solid for so many for so long. But that world around us, the world within us, is calling for us to not just share who we are and what we understand about our situation, but to live into it, to offer possibility along with comfort, to offer justice along with support, to offer action along with contemplation. And this thing that we are thinking of changing was never meant to be perfect or permanent. From the beginning, in the bylaws of the association, we said we would explore and discern together how best to talk about what we have in common at regular intervals. That this comment, this thought about change would be part of how we did things. To rework and reimagine the words that we shared, to talk about our commitments to each other, our commitments to our communities, our commitments to the world, and our commitment to love. I hope you'll continue to be part of the conversation and that you'll join us all in the work of living out our deepest values, however we talk about them, in service of kindness and of justice and of love. End of lecture. Would you rise, please, friends, in body and spirit, and sing together the fire of commitment?
Our
That was beautiful. I have just a couple of congregational news bits here that I'm to pass along to you. Next week is Formula on the 4th. It's next Sunday, May the 26th. And it was introduced by the Social Justice Committee in January of 2023, which is donated formula will be given to the Galilee Center for distribution to their families with babies. Why donate formula rather than money? Due to shortages, stores have been setting tight limits on the number of cans to purchase. Our donations help Galilee hand out more formula each month to families with babies who are unable to buy it on their own. And they're very specific about the kind that they want and the size. And this is for 0 to 12 months. It's Enfamil. This is the size of the can. If you can find one during the week, purchase it and bring it in. That would be awesome. Also, I have asked to call Jane Zahn up here. She's got some information to pass along to you.
Okay, now. Hi, I'm Jane Zahn. I am the liaison from this congregation to the GA and the UUA. And I was going to kind of say the things that Reverend Ian already said, which I don't have to. I can just remind you that you need to really come and learn more about what's happening with the changes to Article 2. And there are 4 new amendments that the delegates will be voting on this time, and 2 of them are new values. So it would behoove you to come and learn what, in addition to the current values, what 2 other ones you might be having. So again, it's 11:30 today, so get your, and Tuesday, or rather Thursday, May 23rd at 6 o'clock on Zoom. So get your cheese and crackers and your cookies and coffee and all of that, and store up a little bit so you can come and talk to us, and it'll be fun. And before I sit down, I would also like to say that in addition to Cheryl's birthday, Jane Betts Stover shares the same day. So let's wish Jane Betts Stover a happy birthday, too.
There are so many May birthdays in this congregation. I love it. One of my favorite months. As we're going to extinguish the chalice, and if you'll read along with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
In the words of the commission who drafted the new proposed Article 2 amendments after months and months of meetings and surveys and collaborations and consultation with thousands of Unitarian Universalists, they wrote these things as they introduced this new Article 2. Love is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. With the power of this possibility in our hearts, with gratitude for the way that we work together as a denomination and a people, go in peace, my friends, to love and serve this world.